Hello, everyone. It's still good to see you, even though I'll have to be on the other side of the screen so that I don't get anybody sick. But I feel like I can always connect to the energy, and I'm really grateful for that. Let's see. So I'm going to be sharing a slides as usual. And it's my pleasure to revisit this talk that I had given for the Tuesday groups. I hope you feel the same. I developed some of the ideas after giving the talk, so I hope you'll find that addition also helpful. So yes, as Cornell said, today's talk title is Generosity as Empowerment Practice. And this is me. I'm the Center Director of Dallas Meditation Center since 2022, and I'm honored to be serving this community that's been built over many years. And what you can expect tonight is that I sense that we really could use some empowerment, empowering spirit lately. So I hope you can get that today. And I'll be sharing some personal reflections on how being generous with my time helped me to feel empowered and safer in the world. And then share this aspect of the practice I'm still working on. There will be group reflection and shares, which is always optional. Make any practice here at the Dallas Meditation Center yours. Um, know that you don't have to participate anything that you're not called to. And there will be a few announcements at the end, including invitation to become a monthly donor. So just a heads up about that. For those of you who are new or people who like to be reminded, I like to always remind ourselves that our core gathering formats are inspired by Plum Village tradition. Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, sometimes lovingly called Thai, is the founder of Plum Village tradition. So you might be seeing his photos around the center. And Brother Chising is the founder of the Dallas Meditation Center. His vision was to bring mindfulness and meditation practice to people of all faith and non-faith secular backgrounds in an earth-based way, with an emphasis on creativity, music, and the arts. And we take these three values very seriously, so I like to invite them in at the beginning of my talk: generosity, creativity, and inclusivity. And that's the title might have given it away, generosity. There's an extra emphasis today. And I wanted to make sure this is said out loud. We serve everyone equally, regardless of their financial means. We accept donations and funding to sustain the community. We encourage donations given with gratitude, knowing that the giving nurtures the giver. So please be aware that when we use the word generous and generosity, these are the spirit that we come from. And I also wanted to add inclusivity, little more emphasis, that we affirm people of all ages, genders, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and abilities. We are a refuge for all people, regardless of their traditions and beliefs. And we welcome people with all levels of experience to practice with us. I wanted to kind of bring that into the room because we will be discussing some Buddhist philosophy and value system, but I don't want this gesture to be misconstrued. I am not asking you to accept this value system as the value system. Our community welcomes people who had difficult experiences with hierarchical religious organizations, and we want to make sure we don't unintentionally sound dogmatic, which is why I hyper carefully re-emphasize the terms of inclusivity. As always, make this practice, mindfulness and reflection, yours. And given everything, I wanted to invite in another voice that really touched my heart into this space. This is the time to remind ourselves that mindful community extends beyond our local one sitting here or tuning in through Zoom. For the sense of empowerment and larger mindful community, I'd like to invite a few quotes from the Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Inauguration Day meditation and reflection Zoom gathering that I attended that was led by Hugh G. Barn of Insight Meditation Community of Washington. That was a beautiful gathering that I attended. So this is him, Dr. Hugh G. Byrne. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right, is the senior teacher with the Insight Meditation Community of Washington and co-founder of Mindfulness Training Institute of Washington. And he worked extensively in the field of human rights and social justice and is committed to advocating the benefits of mindfulness and other contemplative practices to help relieve the suffering of the world. And he has really good vibes. I don't know if you can tell by the photo. So on the day of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day and Inauguration Day, he shared these encouraging words. Everyday man treats everything as a blessing or curse, but bodhisattva, or if you prefer secular terms, one cultivating mindful compassion, accepts life as it is and treats everything as a challenge. I'll read that one more time. Bodhisattva accepts life as it is and treats everything as a challenge. So what's the challenge here? He spoke, today, our heart is invited to be open enough to include those who we disagree with. So opening our heart as wide as possible is the challenge here. But he doesn't end his invitation here. He added, Martin Luther King Jr.'s question is appropriate today. Where do we go from here? He added, we need to remember that Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't just a visionary, wasn't just big picture guy. He was a strategist. He asked, where do we go from here? And also, how do we get there? And he added, we need the wing of compassion and the wing of wisdom to fly. So I found his message encouraging that we have the capacity of compassion that we're cultivating. We're also encouraged to bring in our wisdom and our strategist side into the space. And that this kind of movement, there's a beautiful one in history that we can model after. So I hope today's talk would stir the compassion, wisdom, and sense of empowerment that are already within us. And that's my intention for today. So first, focusing on the word generosity. My training was in poetry, so I tend to think that a word conjures many associations and images and ideas. So let's get on the same page and touch on the concept of generosity within Plum Village tradition as a departure point. As Cornell mentioned, the word is dana paramita, giving, offering, generosity. And there are 6 paramitas, but we'll be focusing on dana today. But I feel like I need to touch on what are paramita before moving forward. The Chinese character used for paramita means crossing over to the other shore, the shore of peace, non-fear, and liberation. To cross over, we have to do something, and that is called paramita. These are the quotes from The Heart of Buddha's Teaching, written by Thich Nhat Hanh. So you'll note that we have to do something. So paramita already implies action. And the 6 paramitas are a teaching of Mahayana Buddhism, and it can be translated as perfection or perfect realization. Um, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, please practice crossing over to the other shore whenever you feel the need. The Buddha said, don't just hope for the other shore to come to you. If you want to cross over to the other shore, the shore of safety, well-being, non-fear, non-anger, you have to swim or row across. You have to make an effort. And this effort is the practice of the six paramitas. So paramitas aren't values we passively hold and sometimes think about, but rather paramita are that of effort and that of action. And I think that concept is helpful for what I'm hoping to convey in this talk. This is a picture of my book. It's six paramitas for making flower, as each paramitas are connected to one another and blossom together rather than separate thing or sequential thing. So I wanted to share that. And I'm mentioning inclusivity again because for me, creating dialogue for non-religious approach is important. Due to my strict religious upbringing where critical thinking was discouraged, I tend to resist taking in a value just because I was told to do so. Some might say I have a chip on my shoulder. And the reason I found home at Dallas Meditation Center was because this was a space where I could come as I am and be, just not have to mold myself into any belief system. And I know some of us are confided that with me. So professionally and personally, I need to create space for non-religious dialogue as well. I love Plum Village approach as a reference point and its gentleness. But please bear with me as I explore this question. So, often we are introduced to the idea of generosity as a value within some sort of ethical system. It's good to be generous. It's right to be generous. But if we were to just not follow any established ethical guideline, why should we be generous? Why? Again, Plum Village has the 14 mindfulness trainings actually has a part about making sure we are determined not to be idolatrous or bound to any doctrine, theory, or ideology, even Buddhist ones. So I'm not saying that touching on Buddhist concept is any doctrine bound, but I'd like to go further and share how my meaning making process led me to accept generosity as a value so that we can all think as a free agent. And I'll be sharing the part I'm having difficulty with. So let's take a few breaths and ask ourselves, if it wasn't for following an established ethical guideline or value system that was handed to us, why be generous? In short, my answer to why be generous came from experiential learning, and that's what I'd like to share in hopes for collective reflection. So here I highlight the word empowerment. I didn't begin my path of compassion by embracing generosity as a virtue and then aligning my life with it. Instead, it happened the other way around. By experiencing the power of generosity, I came to understand that why it is of virtue. Through my practice of being generous with my time, largely due to my loneliness as an immigrant who moved to the United States alone with no connection, I learned that being generous with time and attention led me to the connection with people who mirrored my vulnerabilities, and I got to meet generous kindred spirits. And I'll convey what I mean by that. This is the Beacon, which is a nonprofit organizations that serve homeless uh, people who are suffering homelessness from homelessness, and they offer various types of services to people who are struggling with homelessness, because homelessness is often a symptom of many other lacking safety nets or the basic needs that they're not meeting. And I've gotten to volunteer here. This is in Houston, but there are many beautiful organizations in DFW area that also supports people who are struggling from homelessness. And this is a national organization called United We Dream that support people who are whose path to citizenship that was promised when they uh, decided to go DACA route. And they are an organization that I've had pleasure of working with to support people whose status was being threatened. And this is International Rescue Committee. This is also a national organization, international organization. And there's a Dallas branch as well. And they support the refugee populations that are being settled in Dallas area, this particular one, and in various ways. So by encountering these organizations, I got to really feel into my own vulnerability as an immigrant who was kind of living on the edge economically and legally, in that I felt like if I didn't have enough financial means, I could be on the street because I didn't have enough support network to uh, rely on. And when I was thankfully on student visa most of my time in the United States, but that often the status was often difficult one to maintain in various ways. So by supporting students whose DACA status was being threatened, I could feel empowered and feel like have a sense of camaraderie with the people whose way of being here felt more vulnerable, but in togetherness, we felt stronger. And with the people who are generously giving their time and energy to this population, I could feel stronger that there are people who do care despite the harmful rhetorics that might be floating around out there. And yeah, same with the International Rescue Committee, full of people who are driven by compassion and heart-centeredness. So in connection, there's a sense of safety that started growing in me as an immigrant. And once the inner sense of safety and camaraderie was established, I realized that I had been in kind of a passive observer mode before I felt safe, in that everything that seems to be unfolding in the world seems like something that I could not interact with, something that is happening despite myself. But in camaraderie, in sense of community, knowing that there are many people who are working to do the right thing, to support people who are vulnerable, it helped shifted my way of being in a way that I could believe that we all could participate in shaping the world together. And that is the resilience. There is resilience in connection. There's resilience in community. Because when we're discouraged, we have each other to mourn together and also help each other up. We realize we don't have to do this alone. So this is where I would like to invite us to have a collective reflection for about 7 minutes or so. And some of the questions are just suggestions. Wherever the conversation goes is good. And I'll read it out loud just to stir our minds. In what way do you feel vulnerable in this world? And what would help you to feel empowered? So for me, because I feared homelessness, I feared losing my immigration status, um, organizations like International Rescue Committee, United We Dream, um, and Beacon Homeless Shelter was kind of creating this inner landscape that there are people who are going to support me if I really, if my vulnerability get me to the space of through difficulty. And that was empowering and reassuring. So here I'm inviting you to reflect on what are your vulnerability? Um, what are the area that you don't feel truly safe? And how can I, as in everyone, um, find the cause or organizations that you can help to not only help others, but to establish a sense of safety and strength within you. Another question is, what fearful or angry voice within you would you like to disprove? Some of my fearful voice is, if I lost a place to live, nobody will take care of me. But volunteering for homeless shelter and how well organized their system was disproved that voice. So explore some of, if there's a fear voice in you, being compassionate with that, of course. That's another invitation. And lastly, what kind of context or organization will help you to find empowerment collaborator? So those are the questions that I posed for the group. Oh, let's see. Let me start over. Um, and sorry, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Okay, and I think Corey and I are the only Zoom attendee, so um, I think I might just call Corey while we are muted and we'll talk because sometimes transitioning from breakout room and back can be a little slow, if that's okay with you, Paul. And I'll reshare the reflection questions and let's discuss for like 7 minutes for good luck.
Jiyoon, do you want us to do small groups here?
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, I'll leave it to you how big each group should be. 3 is usually a good number, but I can't really tell how many people are here tonight.
Yeah, that looks about right in here. Looks like we'd have about 5 groups.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
so, let's do groups of 3.
Yeah, I hope that conversation served you well. And there is another part to this talk because, it my journey hasn't been that I gave my time to a wonderful organization, met many wonderful people who are giving their heart and energy to the causes that serve vulnerable population. And yay, I feel safe in this world isn't the end of the story. As with any practices, everything is work in progress, including my sense of safety. And yeah, for some of you may know, I immigrated to the United States on my own with no connection as a teenager and not having any safety net, social safety net, such as family and friends, meant that I felt that all I could rely on to survive was money. Traveler's check that my parents gave me when I came to America. And if you're on student visa, you cannot work outside of the university system, and the university system tend not to pay the student workers very well. So the sense of insecurity was kind of pervading in my way of being. And what's interesting is that this sense of fear often comes up even though I'm in financially much safer and better shape than when I was on student visa, watching my bank account baseline. And this is where I invite in the concept of habit energy. So this is Thich Nhat Hanh's quote on habit energy. He wrote, "Dear friends, the energy that pushes us to do what we do not want to do and say what we do not want to say is the negative habit energy in us. In Sanskrit, the word is vasana. It is very important that we recognize habit energy in us. This energy has been transmitted to us by many generations of ancestors, and we continue to cultivate it. It is very powerful. We're intelligent enough to know that if we do this or say that, we will damage our relationship. Yet, when the time comes, we say it and we do it anyway. Why? Because our habit energy is stronger than we are. It is pushing us all the time. The practice aims at liberating ourselves from that kind of habit energy. Our joy, our peace, our happiness depend very much on our practice of recognizing and transforming our habit energies. They're positive habit energies that we have to cultivate. They're negative habit energies that we have to recognize, embrace, and transform. The energy with which we do these things is mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us to be aware of what is actually going on. Then, when the habit energy shows itself, we know right away. And we say, "Hello, my little habit energy. I know you're there. I will take good care of you." By recognizing this energy as it is, you're in control of the situation. You don't have to fight your habit energy. In fact, the Buddha does not recommend that you fight it because that habit energy is you and you shouldn't fight yourself. It's like, stop hitting yourself. So to apply this concept, my fear about money, my fear about losing the ground completely, is the habit energy that I am working on saying hello to. But going back to the intention versus strategy being how do I shine the light of mindfulness on this sphere besides meditating together, besides volunteering, besides just recognizing that it's there? And this is where I depart from our usual sources and introduce a book called The Art of Money. This is a somatic therapist turned money relationship healing coach. Her name is Bari Tassler. And she shares a few reflections that resonated with me, and I hope you find them helpful. She talks about meditation as part of her practice, so I feel like I'm not too off tangent. She wrote, "My ability to make contributions to the causes I believed in waxed and waned and shifted along with my income, values, and priorities. We all need to find our own balance in generosity, depending on how resourced we are in this moment in our lives. Self-awareness and self-compassion are essential elements of generosity." And other parts of the book, Tessler invites the reader to examine one's financial finance to envision three-tier level. Level one is basic needs are met level. Tier two is I'm comfortable lifestyle level. And the third is all my dreams and hopes are realized ultimate lifestyle level. She suggests that spending money to support what is greater than yourself, such as missions, spirituality, is an exciting and self-empowering lifestyle that inevitably has to come after basic needs are met. but it is empowering when you can do it. So she writes, "You cannot pour from an empty cup." That quote, a simple quote, actually touched me. And that's when I realized that I had some sense of shame when it came to generosity with money. When I first arrived at Dallas Meditation Center, I was a PhD dropout and didn't know what I was doing with my life and didn't have any income. But if I were to take generosity as an ultimate absolute value, um, that meant I wasn't giving, that meant I wasn't generous. So I appreciated this quote, "You cannot pour from an empty cup." And I just wanted to add that, and then just in extra cautiousness, that when I emphasize generosity, please, we want you to be here, and we know that we cannot pour from an empty cup. And what I love about this book is that she explores the sense of shame that comes with money often in various ways. Because talking about money can be so taboo in many family or community culture. She says to shed a light of mindfulness, we have to talk about money. We have to explore what kind of discomfort conversations about money conjures in us. So, when mindfully examined, planned, and spent, money can be a source of empowerment, shaping the life the way individual wants it to be. The fact, imagining the ultimate lifestyle where I can support the causes um, with like a lot of money, that's an empowering way to be. So, can we talk about imagine money in this way rather than something that many feel uncomfortable talking about or exploring or uncomfortable to really dive into? And this is where we land on the last word of the title, practice. So in this book, Tesla recommends establishing a solid routine to envision life that one wants to live, to examine and plan expenses ahead of time and review afterwards. So there is envisioning, planning, and reviewing. And she says, mindfulness grows from practice over time. And um, connecting with money and how one can be generous in a sustainable way. Envisioning that, planning that, and reviewing that is also a practice. So to empower yourself with the comfortable relationship with money, it has to be a recurring and regular practice, is what this book like thesis is on essentially. And with Death Cafe, Grief Support Group, various conversation events I've led, what I've learned is that um, discomfort or shame often dissolves when there is mindful conversation within the right context. So again, optional, but invitation for collective reflection is I have some prompts to explore, um, such as how do you feel if you were to imagine talking about your financial health to your close ones, friends, acquaintances, strangers? How does your comfort level shift and why do you think that is? Another prompt, in what way are you uncomfortable in your relationship to money? Um, the writer says, even people with money sometimes have discomfort because they have inner dialogue of, I don't deserve this money. Or some people feel ashamed that they want more money. Or some people feel ashamed that they're too little and can't talk about it. Or some feel ashamed that they feel like they're bad at managing it. Is there a discomfort that you're comfortable talking about today with the hopes of dispelling some of this shame? Because part of what this book suggests and um, uh, her practice of like offering counseling suggests is that this is a very common experience. So once you realize some of this shame is common experience, it's easy to let that go through open-hearted conversation when you feel like the context and timing is right. And also feel free to invite in what is your comfortable or ultimate lifestyle that you will feel really fully realized. How would you like to live? Because sometimes the joy of what it would look like, talking about that can help us to feel more grounded and feel safer. So these are some prompts, but not limited to. And I would offer, let's say, another 7 minutes. And yeah, 5 minutes of small group conversation. I'll call Corey again, and I'll come back after the 5 minutes is up. So if you would find the same small group, and once again, any share or discussion practice is optional. So please don't feel pressured to participate if that's not your practice.